All right, how's it going, guys? If you guys have been watching the AWC or paying attention to, the pacing of the games that we've been having, the games are just insanely fast. With that being said, Blizzard has recognized that, and there is a ton of changes coming in. Absolute ton of changes. It's crazy. It's almost gonna feel like, I don't want to say a new expansion, but man, things are getting shaken up very frequently. As a competitive player, it's kind of, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of a little bit awkward. You finally get settled in, you're ready for the meta, and boom, snap of the fingers, everything's gonna change. To be honest, we really needed it this time, but as a competitive player, it is kind of rough. So basically, these changes come on Tuesday. Wednesday, we're playing in the tournament. Imagine if you're in the European tournaments, the changes come out Wednesday, you wake up, hey, you're playing in a tournament with new changes you haven't got a chance to test yet. So it's definitely a little scary, but it is what it is. So as you can see here, we have two separate pages. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and cover both of them at the same time, because there's different changes for example, there's changes for Resto Druids on this page and this page. So if we're only getting the adjustments from one page, we might not have a clear understanding of what's happening. I'm going to try and go over all the classes that I understand. Some classes I might skip over because I have absolutely no idea. But I'm going to give my opinion on what classes I think are going to be strong, what classes I think are going to be weaker, and I guess like kind of where I think the meta is going to shake up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and start here with Resto Druid. I don't really know much about Boomkin, but we'll take a look at Resto Druid right now, okay? So our Druids are receiving some nerfs. I can't really say I'm too surprised by that. They're pretty strong healers right now. If a lot of classes weren't receiving damage buffs, I would just kind of be like, why are you nerfing healers? Literally no one could keep anyone alive. But Verdancy was, I think, starting to become pretty common practice. Verdancy minus 10%. Adaptive Swarm is making periodic healing heal for 5% less and doing 10% less healing. So that's actually a pretty significant nerf. Those are pretty significant nerfs right off the bat. So buffs are... Dream State is minus 20 seconds CDR. It was 15 before. So this is a pretty minor buff. People don't really play this talent. I think it's like okay in Soul Shuffle. Frenzied Regen is going to be nerfed. Frenzied, nerfed by 50%, and it was 38%. Frenzied Regen is one of your strongest defensives as a Resto Druid. It is nerfed even harder. And Budding Leaves, the talent that makes your Life Bloom like heal for a really strong amount, is getting nerfed again. It was already nerfed, and now it's getting nerfed again. On top of the fact that Adaptive Swarm is going to make Hots, it's going to make Hots heal for less. So sounds like some pretty significant nerfs. So Budding Leaves was up to 90%. Instead of healing up to 90%, it was, I think it was like 70% or something. Now it's only going to heal up to 45%. Still a mandatory talent if you want to double Life Bloom people, which is probably still pretty good throughput. I was thinking maybe you could actually spec out of it, but I think Undergrowth is probably too strong. So these are really big nerfs to Resto Druid. Just look at this right off the bat. You look at this, Verdancy, nerfed by 10%. Adaptive Swarm, total healing nerfed by 10%. And Hot Healing is also nerfed by 5%, on top of the fact that Life Bloom took a nerf and Frenzy Regen took a nerf. Where are Resto Druid's going to lie with these changes? There's a really new strong talent. Casting 3x Regrowth makes Nourish heal for a lot more and instant cast. So Hot Healing nerfed, instant healing nerfed. Casting Regrowth will make Nourish instant cast. I think overall this looks like a pretty big nerf, but I think you might be able to still respond to Burst Healing pretty well with the instant Nourish. You have to allocate 2 talent points for it, so I'm not really sure where that's going to put you, but yeah, Resto Druid, definitely, I don't want to say down bad, but definitely down. They're going to be in a tough spot. So Resto Druid fans out there, I don't know if you're going to have to re-roll. I don't think so. I don't think so. But I think you're going to have to probably cast more. You might need to regrowth more. You might need to nourish more. Life Bloom is just not going to be as strong, basically. Your hot healing in general is not going to be as strong. So, look at all these changes, guys. This is one class. This is one class. there's like this many changes for every single class. I don't even know how we're going to go through all of this. Holy crap, man. Mistweavers. Mistweaver is actually a really interesting one. Mistweavers actually might be really crazy. I'm going to be excited to go over this one. So this right here is not really something that's even worth noting. They have a new ability that's replacing Bone Dust. Bone Dust is actually a really powerful ability. I don't know where Mistweavers will lie without it, but they do have a really cool new ability. It was their artifact ability back in Legion. If you don't know what that is, for every X amount of seconds you're in combat, a cloud spawns around you, and you can cast a heal, and it does more healing depending on how many clouds are around you. And there's a talent underneath it. Depending on how many clouds you consume, you get a random buff, and the duration is based on how many clouds you consume. So cool. It's a really cool ability. It's a burst heal, which I would say Mistweavers don't really have like a good 100-0 heal, but at the same time, it's just another casted heal that Mistweavers don't really need. They need instant healing, but I will say the buffs are actually really strong. Let's just go ahead and start with buffs for Mistweaver. And honestly, I kind of feel like it's a nerf that they're losing Shalons, but revival healing while increased by 100% while not in raid. This is a really common misconception, but when you're in arena, you are in a raid group. This does not affect raid. This is literally a mythic plus change. Vivify costs less mana. I honestly don't even know what this is. Rising Mist and extends Renewing Mist, applied by Rapid Diffusion. Oh, that's actually a small Fist Weaving buff, perhaps. Yulon now makes Enveloping cost 50% less mana, was 33%. You actually do have a little bit of mana issues with Mistweaver right now, so this is actually pretty nice. They buffed Zen Pulse by a little bit. I think Zen Pulse is kind of dog, so that's not really worth even talking about. Zen Pulse damage and healing increased by 20%, 25%. Now triggers Mastery, Gust, and Mist. Okay, maybe Zen Pulse is actually good now. The fact that it triggers Mastery is interesting, but it's a really weird ability. Basically, you need someone around the target for it to do healing, and it does healing based on how many people are around that target, and then it could do more healing if you have Hots up. You used to need Renewing Mist and Enveloping Mist, but now you only need Enveloping Mist, which is actually the harder of the two Hots to have, but it's still a really clunky ability. I don't know if it's something that you're going to be playing, but the fact that it actually procs Gust of Mist is kind of interesting, because at least it gives you some sort of instant heal, so it's probably actually worth it in that regard. Shulan's Gift is the ability that I was talking about that, you know, does something off clouds, and this is the effects that you can get from using that Shulan's Gift, okay? Spells and abilities deal up to 35% more healing and damage. Not bad. Your critical strike is increased by 30% while above 80% health. This was actually changed in the other notes to be 50% health. So if you're over 50% health, you have 30% chance more to crit. Another really good one here. Decrease your damage taken by 15% and gives you basically Bloodlust, 25% haste. 25% of the damage or healing you deal is duplicated every 4 seconds. This is like a mini Ascendant. So these buffs are really, really good, which makes Shalon's Lessons or Shalon's Gift actually a really good ability. It's a little RNG, because I think some are obviously better than others. Like if you're a Fistweaver, increasing damage and healing, Lesson of Anger is by far the nuts. You're doing more damage, which gives you more healing, and your healing is getting duplicated. It's compounding. This is obviously really good if you're being attacked. I think Critical Strike is the worst one probably, but 30% is such a high amount. It's going to be really good for throughput. Honestly, Lesson of Doubt might be the worst one, because abilities like this deal more damage or more healing based on the target's percentage of HP. And generally, abilities like that, to get more, like, most value, they literally need to be dead. So if someone's at 1% HP, you're healing for 35% more. If someone's at 50% HP, you're only getting half of that value. So generally, those don't feel that good. But overall, I think that these are actually, like, this is actually really solid. I think you're going to want to play this talent all the time. Even if you don't want to use it, like, for the healing, you could literally just duck behind a pillar, cast it on yourself, and then kind of have this super empowered buff. Another change that is actually pretty interesting here. Life Cocoon's cooldown is reduced by 20 seconds, but absorb amount is reduced by 40%. So this is basically, you're playing shorter Cocoon, but shorter value. Now, I personally think this is really good. I didn't think it was going to be that good at first because in the original set of patch notes, they nerfed the PvP talent, which reduces Life Cocoon cooldown by 45 seconds. And I think they made it like 20 seconds or something. So basically, if you decide to spec into this talent, you were only as good as having the honor talent before. It didn't do anything. Basically, you spec'd into this talent and all you were doing was making your Life Cocoon worse, when in the current patch, you could literally just have this talent and it would be better. But now they realized that was kind of stupid, and now you could have Chrysalis on top of having 20 seconds off Life Cocoon. That is BFA style 55-second Life Cocoon, which I think might put Mistweavers right back in the meta. So let's talk about artifact weapon buffs are huge. 55-second cooldown, Cocoon, that's really huge. Definitely really solid for them. Bone Dust Brew, obviously gone, replaced for something, you know, whatever. Mistweaver's mana regen taking buffs. Mana regen buffed, and it's actually buffed on multiple levels, okay? Vivify costs less mana. Your Yulon makes Envelop cost less mana. On top of that, you have more mana regen in total. We already talked about this change, and then enveloping mist healing increased by 25%. Wow, 25% in enveloping healing buff. Those are big changes for Mistweaver. I think 55-second cooldown Cocoon might be one of the biggest ones because it really doesn't feel like you have a great reactive button all the time, but that's huge. These are huge. Mistweavers could easily be a top 3 healer come Tuesday, which is incredible because I didn't even want to play my healer. My chat made me play this healer, and now I might be playing it the day after on a Wednesday, so that's pretty dope. Let's go ahead and take a look at Holy Paladin. Holy Paladins, honestly, like, I don't know where I stand with Holy Paladins, okay? From my point of view, and I will go over the changes, obviously, I feel like they're nerfing melee wings and trying to buff casted healing for Holy Paladin. Will it be good? Will it be better than melee wings? Will it be overpowered? I really don't know, so it's hard for me to say. So obviously Mistweavers don't have any nerfs because they were a bad healer, but Barrier Faith got buffed. I don't think this is a huge buff, but it is a talent that you played if you were regular wings. Paladin, Divine Protection. Wow, they buffed Wall. Oh my god. Wall, 30%, was 20%. Honestly, Paladin's a class that could die pretty easily. That's a really strong buff. Flash of Light healing increased. So think about this for a second. This is also compounding. 15% more healing on Flash of Light. Barrier of Faith gets more of that by default, but then on top of the buff, you know, not too shabby. This is a massive nerf. Aura of Wreck, 100 stacks to apply, was 50. So Aura Reckoning was giving you the free wings. At 50 stacks, they literally doubled it. It is, yeah, 100% worse, essentially. That is a really, really massive nerf. Consecrate damage increased by 50% in PvP. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and type LOL for that one. Holy now increases the damage of your next judgment by 25%, was 100%. So I'm a little weirded out by this change because there's two ways that I'm interpreting this. It says 100%, but I read the tooltip at 200%. So I don't know if this is a tooltip wrong in the game. Is it going from 200 to 25? Increase the damage of your next judgment by 25% was 100%. So I just don't really understand. Okay, so Rec Judge, 25% increase was doubled? I don't know. But I will say this, and if you guys were watching Ab Search the other day, you noticed this, okay? Right now, it doesn't guarantee a crit. Now they're fixing it, which will always make it a crit. Always crits now, though? Does that offset the nerf? The fact that it's always going to crit now? I don't know. I really, really, really don't know. Holy Shock healing increased. That's a nice buff. 15% buff. Holy Light, massive fucking buff. 75% heal increase. was 40. That's huge. That's huge. So as you can see, they're doing huge buffs to casted healing. And in my opinion, Melee Wings is going to be a little bit worse. Hold on, let me take a look at the other side of Paladins over here. All right, so this is basically the biggest buff that one of the biggest buffs that Paladins are getting, in my opinion. Blessing of Winter gives 15% mana back. That is one of the biggest buffs Paladins are getting. Blessing of Winter restores 1% mana every 2 seconds. It's up for 30 seconds. Quick math, I'm pretty sure that's 50% mana increase. And also, I'm going to say Melee Wings, redesign, no mana, last shorter, but less CD. So, I think overall it's a buff for Melee Wings. I don't think that the holy power cost for it is huge. I don't know. I mean, I guess they're not really nerfing. I don't know. Maybe Melee Wings is still going to be cracked. This is tough to say. Get holy power on healing tars with no beacon. That's a really nice quality of life change in my opinion. It looks like to me now from Holy Paladin, Melee Wings is still going to be really good, but now you actually have decent casted healing as a fallback option. That's kind of what I'm seeing now. Aura of Reckoning isn't going to proc as frequently, but you have Melee Wings on a shorter CD, costing you no mana, and if you need to cast, your Holy Lights can heal for a fuck ton. You still have Aura Mastery on Holy Paladin, so you can get those heals out if you need it. You're stronger defensively. Your wall, you know, Holy Shock got a buff, and you're not going to as much because of Blessing of Winter. I kind of feel like overall Holy Paladins are taking a big buff. I think these are big buffs for Holy Paladins. I would say overall Druids are down, Mistweavers are up big, and I think it's just a moderate up for Holy Paladin overall. Cast a Holy Light. I mean, I understand that it's not ideal to cast, but to be honest, as one of the targets that is attacked the most, a Holy Paladin, if you do manage to slip away, casting a big-ass Holy Light on yourself behind a pillar with no capability of being interrupted, it's still pretty nice, in my opinion. Still pretty nice. Isn't it mind-blowing how many changes there's been already? Alright, now we're going to talk about Disc Priest. And Disc Priest, I think, has big changes. I think Disc Priest might be up there with like Mistweaver in terms of how powerful it's gonna be. Disc is just all buffs, I'm pretty sure. Alright, Disc is gonna be crazy, okay? Flash Heal, 25% buff. Renew, 25% buff. I don't know how good that actually is, but yeah, okay. Powered Radiance increased by 100%. So this looks really crazy, but when you read the next line, Ultimate Radiance increases the healing done to Powered Shield by Powered Radiance by 10%. Ultimate Radiance was, I think, the Honor talent. Let me just double check. The PvP talent still makes it instant, so if you're playing it, you're still playing it. But yeah, so Radiance 10% buff, which is still healing. Radiance 10% buff. To be honest, I think that you might not even need to or want to play Radiance in the new patch, but a buff nonetheless. Sins of the Many increases damage dealt by 40%. It was 30%, so 40% max dam was 30. Obviously pretty nice considering you do healing based off Atonement. So this is really crazy. All right? This is a huge talent. 2 charges of pain suppression. If you're a Disc Priest, raise your hand if that's not the best thing you've ever read. 2 charges of pain sup. That's god tier. What else do you even say about that? So there actually is a nerf, and this one's actually relevant. Nerfs. Solace nerfed 15%. I don't know how relevant that is. I think you still want to play Solace for something that we'll talk about. Mind Blast, mana reduced. I think this is a good talent, but it's hard to say. Shoot, man. One of my favorite talents that wasn't actually good before is this one right here. Your Penance fires 3 additional bolts. This used to be after 4 or 5 smites. Now it's going to be after 4 Solaces or Mind Blast. So Solace is instant and Mind Blast is on the Shadow Tree, which means you're going to be able to proc penances, like the 7 penances, like way more often. 7 penance proc viable talent now. That's why you're going to play Solace, by the way. You're Solacing on CD, you're Mind Blasting on CD. It's going to feel much smoother in the rotation. I'm pretty sure all these changes are super relevant, but I'm not super familiar with the tree, so I'm not going to sit here and continue to look like an idiot while going through all of this. But basically, long story short, Dispriest are receiving very significant buffs. The question is now, are they going to be able to keep up with mana? That's something that they've always struggled with. 2 charges Mind Blast. That's very good. 2 charges Mind Blast. Are they going to be able to keep up with mana? Are they going to be able to keep up with damage? So, for example, you have double pain suppression, whatnot. That's really great for burst, but can you just kind of heal through damage? So, what I'll say about the disc changes is nerfs to classes like Unholy Decay, which are getting nerfed. Nerfs to classes like Ellie Shamans. Nerfs to classes like Feral Druids. All those like super strong classes that are getting nerfed is a direct buff. It's direct buff to all healers, but it's super good for Dispriest because the less burst healing you're healing through, the more efficient you can heal through with atonements and not having to use radiance. And on top of that, everyone can agree Dispriest are bad right now. But when you talk about high-rated Dispriest in a 2v2 setting, they can do a ridiculous amount of damage. So if they're put in a spot where damage is at a pace where they can do that, like, damage rotation, they might just be an absolutely ridiculous healer. So I would say overall they're up big, but it's really a question mark whether the meta is set at the right pace for them. So they're definitely getting huge buffs, but it's kind of like where the meta is going to be at to know how good they're going to be. That's how I feel. It's really hard for me to say. They need a certain pace and probably, you know, those specific niche comps like jungle, like RMP, stuff like that, where they could be super strong. There could actually even be a world where, you know, maybe they could even heal like some sort of like really spam damage wizardy comp or something if the meta is at the right pace for them. So it's really hard to know exactly, but definitely big increases for Priest there. All right, let's talk about Resto Shamans. I'm gonna be honest. I think personally Resto Shaman's down. Healing Surge increased by 15%. Awesome. Love to see that. All right, fantastic. Mana Spring irrelevant. Totemic Surge, actually a talent that you use pretty often. Small buff. Right now it reduces the cooldowns of totems by 4 seconds. Now it'll reduce totems by 6 seconds. Tiny, but we'll take it. Healing Wave increased by 6%. You know? So right now you guys are probably like, wow, this looks really great for Resto Shaman. What do you mean? They're getting healing increases. Stay tuned. Acid Rain increased by 120%. Completely irrelevant. We're not even going to talk about that. Flame Shock damage. Flame Shock. 20% damage increase. Okay, sure. We'll take that. Lava Burst. This is actually a big one. Lava Burst. 20% damage increase. Love that. Oh, this is actually another really cool one, but we'll talk about it. Master of the Elements. Master of Elements. 20% increase was 10%. All right. So right now we're like, yo, shamans are looking dope. What's going on? These are all buffs. Don't worry. Let's go ahead and get to the nerfs. Right now, let me just talk about these buffs. It's really hard to cast healing in PvP. I talked about it for Paladin. Obviously, the buffs are great, but it can't be your main source of healing. All right? So we'll just talk about that. So Healing Surge, healing for 15% more is fantastic. The problem with that is it's hard to get off. Totems minus 2 seconds. The tiniest buff you could think of. Healing Wave, 6% increase. You literally only Healing Wave with Nature Swiftness. So it's basically your Nature Swiftness heals for 6% more. That's what that is. Flame Shock damage increased by 20%. As much as you want to be offensive on Shaman, it is really, really difficult. You struggle with globals. So it doesn't sound that crazy. And Lava Burst, 20% damage increase. Once again, you're already struggling with globals. You already don't spec into Lava Surge. Granted, I'll talk about maybe the fact that you could change your talents up a little bit with these new changes. But this is obviously something that might not be that great. And then if you do get a Lava Burst off, Master the Elements would increase your healing. All right, so we'll talk about that soon. But let's go ahead and talk about the nerfs. All that stuff that got buffed for Shaman is what I want to... I don't want to say they're irrelevant buffs, but they're not super impactful buffs, okay? Now, all the stuff that's getting nerfed for Shaman are literally what is making Shaman good right now. So you're nerfing everything that's making Shaman good, and you're buffing things that are going to have very low impact, okay? So Unleash Shield has been nerfed from 4 seconds to 2 seconds. That is a huge nerf. This is really great for offense. This is really great for defense. And personally, a 2-second root with a 15% reduction on it is going to be so useless. A 3-second nerf would be reasonable. A 2-second nerf means it's just going to be dog shit. You're probably still going to play it, but over nerf for sure. And a massive one as well. This is huge for your win conditions. It's huge for your survivability. Unleash Shield root 2 seconds. They cut it in half. It's really rough. It's really rough. Healing stream lowered. Healing stream healing lowered. Healing stream 30% was 38. Okay. Water shield nerfed. This is expected and also justified. Stormkeeper is now 67% effective. This is huge for your win conditions. Riptide healing is increased by 10%, was 15%. So let's just go ahead and take a look at our healing logs on Resto Shaman. Wow, my top 2 abilities got nerfed. Healing Stream nerfed, Riptide nerfed. Oh, don't worry, we got a 15% buff on Healing Surge that we can't ever cast, and a 8% buff on Healing Wave that we only cast with Nature Swiftness. That fucking sucks. 5% here, 8% here, and we're not being compensated in the right way. Let's take a look at another game. Healing Stream was really low here, but once again, I don't even cast a Healing Surge here, and Healing Wave is literally only with Nature Swiftness. Let's take a look at another game. Healing Stream Riptide. Healing Surge was actually pretty high here. That buff could have been relevant here. These are really short games. Let's look for one that's maybe a little bit longer. Healing Stream Riptide. There's Healing Wave. There's Healing Surge. Basically, the buffs that we're getting to compensate our instant healing being nerfed isn't going to help. So basically right now, the question is, how big is the instant healing nerf? Is it going to force us into casting? And if we can get those cast off, are they going to be actually relevant? I would say Resto Shamans are down, but we'll see where they're at in the meta. With that being said, there is a world where you could potentially play a damage loadout, and with Flame Shock being buffed and Lava Burst actually increasing your healing, you could try and spec into Master the Elements. You could try and spec into Lava Surge, and you could try and get Focused Insight, which would allow your offensive globals to increase your defensive globals, which in return could potentially offset some of the nerfs. How you would build this spec, I don't really want to go into this right now. We could talk about it later, but this is a potential to try and, make it so you can be offensive on our Shaman, and using those offensive globals won't set you back as much. There's a possibility that you could try and make something like that work. I will say that. I do think Resto Shamans are down. I don't know how far, and I don't know where they're gonna lie in the meta. Because right now, as a Resto Shaman, I feel like you already die to Melee Cleaves. You get absolutely slaughtered. Melee Cleave trains you, you die. You don't get any casted healing off. So for your instant healing to be nerfed, it sucks big time. Evokers are getting very minor changes. Dream Projection is now a 1-minute cooldown, which from 90 seconds, and its healing is reduced by 35%. So overall, This is completely fine. I don't think this matters at all. I actually think it's better to have a steady flow of healing on a 1 minute cooldown than a stronger heal on a minute and 30 cooldown. So the healing reduced by 35%, the cooldown reduced by 33%, basically lines up. Now, with that being said, Evokers are a class that get absolutely destroyed by Purge, and Blizzard has decided to make Dream Projection dispellable. This is a huge nerf. Basically, your class is already bad into Purges, and now you're going to be worse into Purges. I mean, you're literally at the point where if you're fighting a team that could spam Purge you, you legitimately cannot heal. It's worse than Resto Druid. Because at least Resto Druid can reapply the HOTS as they get purged. They can try and counter with Overgrowth. They can try and get an Adaptive Swarm up, which is a 3 purge button to try and give you globals for global. Evokers, your reversions get purged, it's got a cooldown. Your Dream Breath gets purged, it's got a cooldown. Your Dream Projection, I don't know if I said Dream Breath or Dream Projection, but either one of them, if they get purged, those HOTS have a huge cooldown, 30-second cooldown, 1 minute cooldown. You cannot counteract. You don't do anything. You're literally just screwed. I would say Purge is one of Evoker's biggest weaknesses right now, and it only just got worse. Keep in mind that if the meta is slower, it's actually like we're seeing a lot of damage changes. It's worse if the meta is slower, and the reason why is because if the meta is slower, that gives people more time to purge. If you're a purge class and you're not getting absolutely pounded, you have more time to purge. You got no cares in the world. So Evokers are going to be down bad into purge teams, like unplayable down bad. So what can you do? But I will say this is a really nice change for Evokers. Emerald Communion is no longer able to get stopped. You can't do anything to stop Emerald Communion anymore. That's going to make it feel very reliable. Also, Time of Need is reduced to 60 seconds from 90. I personally feel like Time of Need is absolutely terrible and is a talent that I personally don't even spec. So overall, I would say Evokers are stronger into non-purge teams because Communion can't be stopped. And you're going to have Projection more often, which is going to give you a more steady flow of healing. But into Purge teams, I think you're going to be useless. That's my honest opinion. Completely fine into non-Purge, completely dog shit into Purge teams. Literally infinitely worse than Resto Druids could ever imagine. Will Evokers need some sort of buff to either protect their HOTS via an Honor talent or maybe make at least like Dream Breath not purgeable? It's possible, but that's, yeah. Elemental, I think, is taking some nerfs. Shaman. Flame Shock actually got buffed for Ellie. Chain Lightning got buffed for Ellie. But there's more changes than just this. Bunch of damage increase for Arms Warriors. I will say Arms Warriors are up huge. Up huge. I'm pretty sure Arms Warriors are possibly the best melee coming out on Tuesday. Feral Druid's getting absolutely obliterated. Rake reduced by 18%. Rip reduced by 18%. Ferocious Bite reduced by 25%. That is tragic. Balanced Druids are taking some buffs, but does it matter? I'm not really sure. Star Surge does more damage, but their tier got nerfed. I don't really know what that means. Wrath and Starfire already hit for literally 0. So 50% seems like a huge buff, but 50% of 0 is 0. Feral Frenzy reduced by 10% in combat. Frenzied Regen reduced by 50%. I will say Devastations, I think, are still going to be absolutely ridiculous. I think that Devastations dodged a fucking bullet. So Deep Breath is reduced in PvP. It was 40%, now it's only 20%. And their Spell Crit got nerfed a tiny bit, but Disintegrate got buffed. Azure Strike got buffed. Their NS Flame Breath is still going to be absolutely crazy. I think I think Devastation is going to crack people. They have shit defenses, but I think their burst is still going to be over the top. Aurora Sack means your pet's not going to die as hard. Arcane Execute got nerfed. We already talked about Mistweaver. Ret Paladin's burst got absolutely butchered, but they're getting sustained damage to compensate. So to be honest, these are great changes. Are Ret Paladins going to be viable for these changes? I don't know. Final Reckoning nerfed by 20%. Radiant Decree nerfed by 33%. Their two-piece got nerfed, but Crusader Strike now does 80% more damage. Their healing is more effective. Templar's Verdict does 10% more damage. Final Verdict does 10% more damage. Exorcism does 80% more damage. The question is, will Ret be a class that can be viable if sustained damage is good outside of their burst? Definitely changes in the right direction, but is it good enough? I personally think Rets are going to be down bad. I've never seen Ret be a class that is just like, yeah, guys, I'm just a consistent damage DPS class. No, they're literally a class that kills you 100-0 in very short windows, and I've never seen it be viable outside of that. They're taking the right direction, but is it going to work? Probably not. Warriors, bleed damage, no longer deals reduced damage in PvP, was reduced by 50%. No longer has a cooldown effect, was reduced in PvP. Slaughterhouse got buffed. I don't know if Fury's going to be good, but Warriors getting a lot of changes. Let's go over some of these, because there's also more changes to Warriors. For example, they are getting, what's that damn ability called back that gives them a shield? I can't think of it. Ignore Pain. Ignore Pain is huge for them. Marksman is getting kind of destroyed because they're removing Double Tap. I think Assassination Rogues dodged a bullet as well. I'm going to be honest. I think Assassination Rogues dodged the fattest bullet ever. I think Assassination is, like, only being overshadowed by, like, how ridiculous, like, Feral Druids and, like, Unholy DK DH is and stuff like that. I think DHs also are going to be really good because I think that they didn't get destroyed. So they buffed Shadow Dust, but they nerfed it in PvP combat. Honestly, Shadow Dust is kind of broken, so I'm happy to see that. Arms Warrior, there's a new talent. I mean, Arms Warriors are just getting so much stuff, man. Arms Warrior, if you have an Arms Warrior friend, guys, and he hasn't read the patch notes, start buttering him up, guys. Start buttering him up. You know, you want to be his best friend. You want to be his best friend, because Arms Warriors are going to be absolutely ridiculous. Last but not least, I want to go over the DK changes. I've been pretty critical about DK changes before. Obviously, I'm biased. I have Mez on my team. And yeah, but we'll go over this real quick. Primary stat reduced by 40%. Stamina increased by 35%. I would say right now it's a good change with all the damage nerfs. I don't know if this was necessary. Overall, this is definitely going to slow down the pace of the game a little bit, which is needed right now, but hopefully gets adjusted as time goes on. Death Strike healing is no longer reduced in PvP combat. It was 25%. Improved Death Strike effectiveness is still 50% reduced in PvP combat. Enfeeble's damage reduction against enemies is now reduced by 33% PvP combat. Rune of Spell Warding's Absorb is 33% effective in PvP combat. That is a 66% nerf to Rune of Spell Warding. And to compensate, they buffed Death Strike by 25%. Okay? That's... yeah. They also nerfed Necrotic Wound, which is good for their offense and defense. And Virulent Plague took a 30% damage nerf. 30%. Their number one damaged ability got nerfed by 30%. Their number one defensive ability got nerfed by 66%. So healing done here. Necrotic Wound was number one heal. This got nerfed a little bit. Their second highest heal was Rune of Spell Warding. This got nerfed by 66%. Death Strike is going to get a 25% buff. To be honest, that's a huge Death Strike. That's one of the biggest Death Strikes I've ever seen. And their Virulent Plague, guys, took a 30% nerf. 30% on their biggest damage dealing ability. I personally feel like Death Knights are going to be dog shit. All right? I'm gonna say it right now. I think that they are going to be dog shit. That's just my opinion. So right now, you're literally dog shit into surviving melee, because Death Strike sucks. 25% buff. Little better, but not enough. And you're really good into casters, but now you're dog shit into casters. And that's the truth. Like, yeah. And on top of that, your damage is gonna suck now too. So Mez W is coming out of the woodworks, and Mez DK is probably gonna be on the bench. Now, I've said this before, And when I said it, there was a lot of changes that happened, and Death Knights still actually somehow came out on top after all those nerfs they took before. I thought Death Knights were going to be dog shit, and, you know, other stuff got nerfed, and there was other changes, then they got damage buff, but this seems crazy, all right? I'm just saying. I think that Death Knights are literally more extinct than the fucking dinosaurs on Tuesday. That's just my opinion. Frost will be absolutely fine with Go comps. With that being said, Frost will still be fine with Go comps. Devastation Frost will be good. Windwalker Frost will be good. It's possible that DH Frost will be good. But I think Unholy lost its pressure. I think they lost their pressure with Necrotic Wounds and Plague being reduced by 30%. I think that's so crazy. And on top of that, I think that they have no self-survivability. I was listening to Mez's stream earlier, and he said basically he thinks Arms Warriors will have more healing than Death Knights. So if you're a class that is tankier than Death Knights by default, because you can kind of like go in D stance and, you know, whatever, you have more healing and you have more damage. I assume that they're gonna have more damage. Why would you ever play a Death Knight? That's my opinion. Frost will still be fine in the comps it's good into. Completely fine. But yeah, there we have it, guys. I mean, I've been doing this for an hour. There is a absolute ton of changes coming in. I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see the meta get, shaken up. I'm happy that Blizzard is making consistent changes. And let's just hope that if any of these were overkill, if some of these classes still need buffs, that they're still willing to make changes. So great job by Blizzard. Very happy to see it. If you guys, just one quick time. Resto Druids are down, Mistweavers are up big, Holy Paladins are up, Disc is up big. Still might not be the right meta for Disc, but we'll see. Overall, I would say Resto Shamans are down. I don't think they're down bad, but I definitely think they're down. And Evokers are, I would say Evokers are actually stronger. So they're up into non-purge and down into purge. Basically what it comes down to. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys have a great time with the new patch coming out this Tuesday.
That can never be